Right.
Okay, David, how are you?
Good
Nice
morning.
to see you. Good morning to you.
It's
So
good.
glad we're able to reconnect.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I was considering the last time how we met. It's been a couple of years, but I think you were part of a David Bayer event, and you
That
and I
that I
got on a
was.
conversation. Yeah, yeah.
That's
So
right.
here we are years later, and I'm excited to have this conversation. I know that our conversations before elicited, hey, I want to have more conversations. I want to talk about some important things about healthy relationships. So here I am, please.
Here
Let's
we
get
are.
started. Yeah, exactly.
Let's get started. So, David Lee, Daring Deeply with your wife, Paige Lee. You have been doing remarkable work. I've been watching you ever since I met you.
Mhm.
It's been impactful, and I thank you, even though I'm
Mhm.
still happily single. But with that said, my heart is so beautiful and I love the way it's evolving. And the work that I read from your post and sharing and podcasts is significant to understand more about, who we are as an individual, to understand triggers and patterns and cycles and mindsets and perspectives, so to speak. I noticed that you're living in Nashville, Tennessee now. For how long?
That is correct. Well, see, I moved here 3 years ago. I came after a girl. I pursued a girl, and then she became my wife. So,
Love it.
yes, yeah, that's a really wonderful story, and maybe we'll get there at some point. But
I'm sure,
yeah,
sure so many can relate to stories like that.
hmm
And you're from Kansas City.
I am Kansas City, Missouri. Big
Yeah.
Kansas City Chiefs fan.
Are you Chiefs?
So,
Okay. I have a friend
oh
who's
yeah,
all into
huge, huge,
Chiefs.
yeah, huge, huge,
That's
huge.
good
It's
stuff.
it's a good
And
time to
then
be a
later
Chiefs
on
fan.
you'll share all the pages that all the social media that everybody could follow you on, or I'll put it down in all the
Absolutely.
links and comments. So I guess let's just jump right in.
Let's do it.
Um, so David, I've been pulled to David because I truly believe that he is one of the pioneers in relationships and understanding the psychology behind it and how to, really explore why some relationships don't work or how they expire or how to even make them better and revive them. So I'll jump right in with the first one that came to mind. You mentioned a while ago when we spoke that we attract what we are.
Hmm.
And if someone constantly experiences unhealthy relationships, you suggested they need to look inward,
Mhm.
possibly connected to the reticular activation system. Can you elaborate on this concept?
Yeah, absolutely. So the reticular activation system is a part of our nervous system that only sees what it's ready to see. So many people will describe a woman becomes pregnant and suddenly she sees all these pregnant people. Or you buy a new car and suddenly everyone around you has the same car. Well, those cars were always there. Those pregnant people were always there. But our reticular activation system is activating because we're ready to see it. So, how we navigate through that in our work is you will only see what you're prepared and ready to see. So if you're only inundating yourself with certain levels of maturity, emotional availability, those types of elements within relationships, those are the only things that you're going to see. And energetically speaking, you will attract who you are. So if you are sick and tired and sick of attracting the same negative relationship patterns in your relationship, whatever the relationship is, most predominantly we're speaking about primary romantic relationships. If you're tired of attracting a certain energy and you see that it's a negative pattern, it's time to look inward because you are who you attract. As harsh as that can sound, it's absolutely true. It is what we refer to as the law of attraction, and specifically from our work, it's the law of polarity, meaning there is masculine and feminine energy within each one of us, not related to gender. And so when our masculine and feminine energetic wounding, i.e., trauma from childhood, which is what we specialize in,
Right.
those wounds will attract the familiar wounds within your partner. And this is what we often refer to as a trauma bond. So if we want to begin to heal our ability to attract what we truly want, we have to truly heal within ourselves first.
How one would start with that, because I could see how a lot of people would be like, but I'm so good and I give so much and I don't have a bad intention, although I keep attracting interesting ones, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good word. Um, yes, if you don't have bad intentions, of course, and the reality is we all want love. I mean, that's a universal thing. We can fight it, we can be cynical, we can be bitter, we can be resentful, we can, that's all wounding, by the way, within ourselves. But the reality is we all want co-creative, connective, passionate, purpose-filled, romantic partnerships. Every single one of us on the planet. Every single one of us. We want that. Now, the trauma wounding within us from childhood has led us into saying, I just don't think I could ever have that, or there are no good men out there. Or I am, and I'm going to challenge you a little bit, Dina. I'm
Mhm.
going to challenge the I am happily single, which I
I knew you were
completely
going there.
understand. I completely understand where you're coming from, and I honor your perspective. At the same time, my guess is if you attracted an elevated man who came into your life to pursue you and claim you and honor you and provide for you and protect you and to lead you, you probably wouldn't shut the door.
Never.
But exactly, exactly. So the more that you are open to the opportunity that a man does exist, he will. And he will find you. This is what we often tell women in our programs. You don't go find a man, he finds you. This is part of the law of polarity as well. Masculine finds, the feminine receives. The feminine just
Mm.
bees. She is living her best life, so to speak. The masculine is pursuing her, claiming her, going after her. That's what I did with my wife, Paige. I went after her. I pursued her. I didn't chase her, which that's a whole nother rabbit hole we could go down, but I pursued her. I wanted her. I found ways in which to claim her in a
Yes.
powerful, decisive, protective, and provisionary energy.
I hear women speak like this in the essence of that wanting that, the
Mhm.
pursuer. And I could relate wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
As much as I'm happily single, it's because
Mhm.
I'm choosing the healing work
Yes.
and my heart is open
Mhm.
and they're coming in like, I'm getting pursued, or I'm not even going to go down that conversation because that's a whole nother ballgame of what comes in sometimes, just
Mhm.
because the environments that we are in that are so limited. But the heart is open to receive that. And it's interesting, and I'm sure women could relate with me in saying, there was a time in my life where I was the pursuer for so many years,
Mhm.
and that got me nowhere
Mhm.
till I realized what was happening. And
Mhm.
it's relatable to what you just said about the
Mhm.
pursuing and the women receiving. And I think that's beautiful and I think that's natural.
Mhm. Yeah, we refer to it as timeless. This is not 1950s America. This is not the weakness of feminine energy. It's actually the strength of feminine energy and the wholeness of masculine energy coming together. So what you were just describing, let me step onto that for a second. What you were just describing in women who are pursuing men and men who want to be pursued, that's what we refer to as an inverted marriage dynamic or inverted relationship dynamic, where the woman is more in her masculine energy and the man is more in his feminine energy, or as we describe it, wounded masculine or wounded feminine. So again, every single one of us on the planet possesses both masculine and feminine energy. Healthy masculine energy is provision, protection, strength, power, decisiveness, devotion, an ability to know his purpose, to own his stuff. That
Mm,
is healthy masculine energy. And women
mm.
possess elements of that energy as well. The difference is you, for example, my guess is want to be more in your feminine than your masculine, right?
Oh, yes.
Exactly. The more that you want to be in your feminine energy, the more that that will draw, and I use that word specifically, that word draw a healthy masculine into your life. The more that you are simply being, that you're simply radiating, creating, ideating, being sensual and sexy and open and receptive, as you described, your heart is open. Exactly. A powerful, strong, devoted, decisive, protective, and provisionary man will find you and he will pursue you. And there will be no question if he's pursuing you. That's often a question that we get from women in the dating space is, I don't know if he's really interested in me. And my response back to is, if you're questioning it, he's not.
Right.
He's not that into you. It's time to move on because a
True.
man who is pursuant of his woman will not stop. Now, within boundaries, with an appropriateness, we could get into the wounded masculine or wounded feminine and say, oh my gosh, this guy's stalking me, get away. That's not what I'm
Right.
referring to. What I'm
No.
referring to is you will absolutely know that this man is absolutely interested in you because he's pursuing you in a really healthy, pursuant, decisive way.
I remember I had that once before in my 20s. It lasted like a good 10 years, but I was young. I had emotional immaturity then. Oh, but it was nice. And there was some nice balance. When you look back, it's like, okay, now I could see what a healthy pursuing looks like, a
Mm-hmm.
healthy relationship looks like.
Yeah.
So, which brings, so for folks that are now becoming more aware of it, since we're talking about it, brings me to the next question. You spoke about love drug when we spoke a couple of weeks ago, and how women, I'll stick to women, how women become addicted to the feeling of being in love or having that man in their life. You also mentioned that this craving stems from a desire for the masculine energy because their femininity seeks masculine direction.
Mm-hmm.
So how can women begin to heal this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
Right?
her desire for masculine leadership is natural. It has been there since she was a little girl. Now, what happened in childhood, and this is what we specialize in, is that we all experience unprocessed, unresolved childhood trauma wounding as a little girl or as a little boy. Every single one of us. All 8 billion of us on the planet have unprocessed, unresolved trauma. Now, as we define trauma, it's simply an overwhelming of the nervous system. It's when something dysregulating happens in our life as a little girl or as a little boy, and it's not appropriately processed. It's not appropriate, that energy is not appropriately processed and released, and then enters the nervous system as trauma and will stay in our bodies, not our minds. This is not mindset work, this is body work. Will stay in our bodies for the rest of our lives until we begin to establish as an adult a new relationship with that wounded part of us that still believes that it doesn't have healthy masculine energy within its purview. So if
Wow.
a little girl doesn't experience powerful, devoted, strong, decisive, provisionary, protective masculine energy, most predominantly from dad or from uncle, grandfathers, the presence of healthy masculine energy to provide her what it looks like to have healthy boundaries, for her to be in her feminine energy, where it's okay to be a little girl, where it's okay to be playful and radiant, and to dance in the rain and to sing and to be the little girl that she was crafted to become. If that's not present, what happens as a little girl is she will begin to create and craft and forge emotional walls to protect her, to, in essence, go into her masculine protection to keep herself safe because there wasn't healthy masculine as the protective force in her childhood. So the
Like
answer
a
to your
survival mode?
yes,
Sorry.
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So remember the nervous system, the nervous system has one job, Dina. Only has one job within all of us, and it's simply to keep us alive. Now that may sound a little dramatic, but it's absolutely true, is that when little girls and little boys do not have that healthy masculine presence as they're growing up, and by the way, trauma only happens to us in childhood. We cannot be
Yeah.
traumatized as an adults. That's a myth. I just opened up another can of worms.
Right.
But the
I
reason
can
why
understand.
trauma only enters our nervous system as children is because it's when we're most susceptible. It's when we're most vulnerable. It's when we are faced with all the things of the world and we're opened up and we're so curious as little children. But what happens is when we are faced with too much too soon or faced with too little for too long, emotionally, spiritually, sexually, psychologically, that enters the nervous system as trauma. And the nervous system only wants to keep us alive, so it will create protective mechanisms in the absence of healthy masculine energy. So, what is the answer for that woman who continues to pursue and be strong and boss babe and hustles and grinds and then wonders why that she continues to attract men in their feminine energy? Well, it's because they're in this inverted state. Why is she in that inverted state? Because of her unprocessed, unresolved childhood trauma that she has yet to heal. So, the process is that we help women do relationship with that wounded little girl from so long ago.
Yeah. The work is so healthy. I know in the beginning of the healing work, I guess it all depends on how open you are to receive what you want to understand, because then the perspective shift. Like for me, I'm always open to heal. Give me the constructive criticism 24/7. I'm ready. It's just
Mhm.
the person I am and I choose to be. And but back in the young days, yeah, that hardcore girl, high school, maybe early 20s, it was way too masculine. And I see where it came from. The
Mhm.
survival instincts
Mhm.
of not getting what I needed, right? In those forming years. And can you say that the forming years of what we're talking about with those trauma wounds is like from age 0 to 8 or 0 to 10?
Yeah, yeah. So really, we identify obviously when the body, when the soul, when the spirit, when the little girl, little boy is most susceptible, is between the ages of 0 and 18. Why? Is because they're
Mm,
in under the control of caregivers. And
yeah.
so they are always looking. We are always, as little children, we're always looking for direction. And when that direction isn't there, when that care, when that nurturance, when those boundaries are not present within the care of our caregivers, and why, by the way, is because they're wounded.
Right.
So, and that is what we refer to as generational trauma. Why could they not provide the nurturing environment for sons and daughters to properly process when that dysregulating event happens in childhood? It's because they are ill equipped. They do not have the capacity to hold space for their children's ability to process that trauma. So I often use this example. So when I was 5 years old, Dina, fell off my bike, skinned my knee, just like millions of children across the planet for the dawn of time since bicycles were a thing. Now, in that moment, I fell off. It was pretty significant. I'm crying. I'm upset. This hurts. Oh my goodness, what's going on? My caregiver came over to me and said these words: "You're okay. Get up, rub some dirt in it. Boys don't cry." I was 5 years old. So what happened is that moment, because trauma, by the way, is not an event, it's the unprocessed energy that is not properly and appropriately and healthily released. So in that moment, because my caregiver dismissed, diminished, sloughed off my pain and said,
Hmm.
"Get over it, you're okay," didn't allow it to be validated, it then and then, as a 5 year old, entered my nervous system as trauma and remained inside my nervous system and recirculated for decades. And what it told me was, and how it affected my relationships moving forward as an adult, was if you show emotion, people may leave. If you show
Yeah.
emotion, people will dismiss you. And I am not, clearly, and I know men that may be listening to this, and this is why we coach men and women. And when I'm coaching men from all over the planet, this is a pervasive, common narrative
Mm,
that they were told to, quote, "get over it, rub some dirt in it, boys don't cry, don't be weak." That, ladies and gentlemen, is trauma. That is not how boys are grown up. That's a myth. That is a low level form, believe it or not, of bullying. Because
absolutely.
my emotions in that moment, my physical, spiritual, psychological, a way to release that energy wasn't allowed by someone with whom I trusted.
Right.
So now, what's the other side? What could have happened in that scenario that it wouldn't have entered my body as trauma? My caregiver comes over to me and says, "Oh my gosh, David, holy cow, I have been there. I can understand how that hurts. Let's take care of that. I've got you. Let's go back to the house. We'll put some medicine on this. We'll put a band-aid on this. I get it. I've been there. It's okay. We'll get back on the bike tomorrow."
Wow.
That
You could feel the change in the energy.
exactly
Yeah.
you could feel, and I could see it on your face too as I'm describing that.
Yeah.
I could feel it in my body. That's the difference between that event entering my nervous system as trauma and that event simply being healthily processed and I move on. That's why
Mm,
the same event, so to speak, can happen to two different children and affect them dramatically differently. Why? Because one child may have had a more healthy caregiver to help that child process that wound. So I've recently I am working with a woman right now who is navigating some intense traumatic experiences. She was abused by another child, and her response was that she went and told her caregiver, and her caregiver said, that's not what happened. That's not a big deal. We can't say anything. You need to forget it. Now, this is incredibly common among so many millions and millions and millions of people across the world. That entered her system as trauma. In other words, she was told that if she's hurt, she needs to be quiet. Well, that is one of the most pervasive levels of trauma, and that will continue to enter into her nervous system and has for 50 plus years.
Wow.
50 years, that wounded little girl has been inside of her saying, don't trust men, don't say anything, keep your voice silent, it's not worth it, stay small. Well, it's no wonder then she would attract certain people in her life, and then wonder, back to our whole conversation on this particular call, of why we continue to attract people who we do not want to attract. Our mind, our logic says, red flag, yo, what's going on? Why do I continue to attract, quote, the wrong man or the wrong woman? Or why do I continue to attract the same energy within my marriage dynamic? Well, it has nothing to do with your spouse. It has nothing to do with your partner. It has everything to do with what you learned and what was inundated and continues to recycle inside your nervous system as trauma from your childhood.
Yes. You know, David, some people, a lot of people are not aware of this conversation and are ignorant
Mhm.
and incapable. So therefore, children will unfortunately suffer those consequences of the inability of some of these parents. And it's unfortunate. I don't think there's much we can say to them if they're so closed down and they think they're perfect. Because if they're not aware,
Mhm.
then it's like a dead end.
Mhm.
So for the
Yeah, that's
people that are awaken, um, I think we touched on some tools of what they could do, right, to help
mhm.
themselves and go deeper. And then, because there's these two questions I have here that we pretty much touched on, but this one here with parents and healing, we touched on the idea that when parents heal, it positively impacts the children. It
Mhm.
helps them.
Mhm. Yeah.
And this will tie in. Can you share more about how a mother embracing her feminine energy can influence her child's development and perception of relationship,
Mhm.
which
Yeah.
kind of is the opposite of what we're talking about the masculine support?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I often say, Dina, that the most important decision you'll ever make and the greatest gift you will ever give to your children. I'm specifically talking to women, but it's true with us men too. But all the moms out there, the most important gift you will ever give your children is not more stuff, is not more attention, is not putting them before you. You have to put you. Uh-huh. I just saw that too. Right. And there was a shatter through the ecosystem of the internet just now because I said, oh,
Yeah.
moms, stop putting your children ahead of yourself.
That was a hard
That,
pill to learn a long time ago.
yes, yep, yeah. Why is that true? Because if you put your children ahead of yourself, you are creating yet another generation of codependency because they believe the world surrounds them. The world revolves around them. The greatest gift you will ever give to your children, ladies and gentlemen, is a healing you. Is if you prioritize your healing growth and transformation, what that will do for them is they will witness what a healing individual is doing, is living, is being. And a woman specifically who is healing into her feminine energy, which, by the way, the process is this: a woman doesn't become more feminine by putting on lipstick or wearing lingerie or getting her hair done or dressing nicer or more sexy or more alluring. A woman enters into her femininity because she's healing her unprocessed childhood trauma wounding that has kept her in her masculine energy for decades. When a mother begins to take and commit unto her healing of that unprocessed childhood trauma wounding, she slowly becomes more feminine. And that for her daughters is the most beautiful, radiant example of what a woman could be.
Mm. Oh, wait, your thing just went off, the microphone. All right, go again. Then
Can you hear me?
attracting.
Can you
Now
hear
I
me?
can.
Yep, great.
Mhm.
It will set forth an example for the daughters of these mothers that a feminine woman will attract the powerful, strong, devoted, provisionary, protective energy of a masculine man as she grows into adulthood. The example for her son will say, that's what a feminine woman looks like. That's who I want to pursue. I want someone who I can provide for, I can take care of, I can protect, I can be devoted unto, I can set forth and live in my purpose that's going to attract a feminine woman just like my mom. So that can affect generations and generations and generations to come.
That's beautiful. Have have you seen this transformation before your eyes happen in the work that you're doing with your wife?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I
We
bet.
have,
I bet.
yeah, it is. I was saying this on a masterclass that Paige and I were teaching yesterday. There's always, Dina, this watershed moment or series of moments, specifically with the women that we work with, where she finally has this aha breakthrough moment and goes, it is all about me. I do have to make it about me. I have to make the decisions that's going to carry me into my healing, growth, and transformation. I need to stop being codependent and worrying about everybody else before myself. I need to stop putting my children ahead of me that creates yet another generational codependent trauma bond. I need to
Yes.
make sure that I'm taking care of myself, my health, my spirituality, my psychology, my emotional stability. I have to put myself first. I have to establish boundaries. And what they're recognizing is that everyone around them is beginning to take notice. And everyone around them begins to go one of two ways, by the way. And this is when I
Right.
put my warning label. Be careful what you wish for. Because when you
Yes.
begin to establish boundaries, ladies and gentlemen, in this healing work, you will have people around you going, um, excuse me, who are you? Why aren't you taking care of me? Why aren't you waiting on me hand and foot? What's going on? And that could be jolting to their nervous system. And what we teach, and this is why this work is so important, that we're working and leading and guiding and taking these women through this process, because you cannot do this work alone. I've tried, believe me. I have a therapist. I have two other coaches who help me through
Right.
my own process, right?
It's true.
So we help them move through that dysregulating, jolting season when people begin to look at her and go, wait, I don't like the fact that you're healing. I don't understand it. What's going on? And for them to continue to maintain and establish further boundaries so they can honor themselves and continue to move forward in a healing trajectory.
I see women who start growing in marriages, nevertheless, and they grow into their confidence and start becoming more aware of this and acting differently, so to
Mhm.
speak. And I notice marriages really go off kilter and they struggle hard. Have you seen marriages revive with the work that you're doing? And I'm sure you've seen some just expire and they have to just go their separate ways, right?
Yeah, we've seen both. We've absolutely seen
Yeah.
both. We're working with folks right this moment that are experiencing both sides of that. We've had incredible stories of a husband and wife saying that you absolutely helped transform and develop a new marriage. They had been married for years and years and
Yes.
years, and what they've had to do is establish a new relationship. Because, Dina, you do not heal, save, fix, or work on a relationship. That's a myth. You can't. It's impossible. You can only work on yourself. You don't change your husband. Newsflash, friends. Okay. You cannot
Right.
change. You cannot alter. Cannot tell your husband to do something. You cannot tell your wife to change. I know you've tried. We all have, but it's a moot point. It does not work. You have to work on yourselves. And so, in working with this particular couple that I'm speaking of, I work one on one with her. I work one on one with him independently. And yes, the possibility that that relationship dramatically transforms, either for the good or for the not so good, is a possibility. If one person is healing and moving forward and the other person is not, yes, eventually we all have to come to a sobering realization of what is next for us. Because far too often people remain in relationships for codependent reasons and they stay stuck and then wonder why. It's because they continue to hold on to something that they believe or has potential or he can change or she can change. The reality is nobody changes. only out of manipulation and coercion, by the way, and that's not
Mm,
real change.
mm. Right.
People have to make the commitment to change themselves on their timeline. And so that's why this is so fragile. So many folks will come to us and say, we need help in our marriage. Help us save our marriage. And I say, I'm not the one for you. I can't do that. Or as our website says at the very top of our website, we can't save your marriage, but we can help you heal.
Yeah.
Far too many people have been programmed, including myself in the past, have been programmed with this narrative that says, my marriage is important. I want to save my marriage. There's no such thing, ladies and gentlemen. Stop
Right.
trying to save your marriage and start committing to you.
Amen. All in with the individual work that makes the collective work so powerful. And that's why I love the practice I'm in with massage, yoga, hypnotherapy. You can really hear what's going on beneath it. And with the massage therapy work, you know how you talked about it's in the body?
Mhm.
You
Absolutely.
know, areas, especially in the intercostals and ribs and décolleté. When I get into all these like heart areas, throat areas, back areas, it's powerful work.
Hmm.
Things that get stored and come up.
Hmm.
And I just
You're
hope to
precisely correct.
inspire,
That's where it's stored. That's
right?
precisely what it's stored. Yeah, yeah. So much of that
Yeah.
is so much of we consistently when we're working with our clients one on one, we're consistently asking them, where do you feel
Where do
that
you feel?
voice? Where do you feel that part of you that's screaming that says, don't trust him, or stay small, or keep your voice down?
Mm.
Continue to commit to this man because you're, quote, married. That's a
So
wounded
what
part.
does let's see, how do I ask this question? So what does a healthy, loving, respectful relationship look like?
Hmm. I'll give you our definition. And those that are listening right now or watching, whatever
Sure.
capacity, get your pen and paper out. This is how we define a healthy relationship. I'm speaking as myself. It's when a healthy relationship is when I commit consistently and on a daily fashion to my own growth, healing, and transformation, so that then I can commit to supporting my wife, who is
Mm.
committed to herself to do the same.
Mm-hmm.
That's all a healthy relationship is. It's not building a 401k. It's not having 3.2 kids. It's not having a dog. It's not having a place in the city and on the beach. It's not about luxury vacations and creating a Reiki practice. Okay. Those things don't heal your trauma ever. They can prepare your body for the healing process that we talk about. But the reality is, a healthy relationship must always begin with yourself. So I'm not responsible for how my wife Paige is healing. I'm not looking over her shoulder. I'm not nagging. I'm not controlling. But the reason why I choose her today, I'm going to say something provocative, Dina. I may not choose her tomorrow. What? What? No, I may not. Why? Because she may have a decision unto herself where she wakes up tomorrow morning, taps me on the shoulder, and says, you know what, David, I'm out. I'm not doing this
Yeah.
anymore. I don't want to heal. I think it's bunk. Trauma's stupid. I don't want to do this business with you anymore. I don't even like the way you smell. She may make
Right.
that decision. And then I then will make a decision. That's why I can confidently say that I build a new marriage relationship with my wife, Paige, every single day. Why did I choose her today, this morning? Because I cannot wait to come back to her today after a work day and see how she has committed to her daily growth, healing, and transformation. And we can have
Mm.
that conversation and we ask one another. That is a co creative, passion filled, purposeful, healthy, polarized marriage. Is that when
Love it.
I'm committed to my healing, she's committed to hers, and we have ongoing dialogue and we're supporting one another in that healing process, not telling them what to do, not helping them heal, not making sure that they get the marriage retreat brochure slid across the table. Hey, babe, we should go on a marriage retreat. Wrong,
So it's
wrong.
not leaving your husband a list of post-its of what to do every day because they can't remember.
Exactly. And stop sending him my reels. Stop telling him to go check out David Lee. Uh-huh. Now I know. What? Wait, you just sawed off your entire coaching practice at the knees. What I'm trying to teach is it is everyone's individual process to begin to commit to this healing work. And so when a woman sends reels to her husband and says, look at this, look at this, look at this, that is emasculating. That is her in her wounded masculine energy, passive aggressively telling him that he's not good enough.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think that he wants to then do anything about that? No, it's
No.
going to drive more of a chasm between you and your husband.
Oh, yeah. Oh, David, what a pleasure to speak with you.
Mm-hmm.
My
Thank you,
God.
Dina.
Yes, you're welcome.
We could go on and on and on, but
Oh, we sure can, and we will in time.
mhm.
So to conclude this glorious moment that we've had together, what is one thing you'd like to just share with everybody before you go? Besides your YouTube channel and where we could find more information?
Yeah, I'd like to give everybody an opportunity to have a first step in their own healing before they potentially then commit to hiring us as a coaching practice or a therapist or counselor or whatever the healing professional that you choose. Is if you're really struggling, really struggling inside your marriage relationship, or you're single and you're trying to figure out how to break these negative patterns and you continue to attract the wrong man or woman, is that there are triggers that you feel within your body every single day where you
Mm.
feel dysregulated, where you feel pain, where you feel anger and frustration, confusion, bitterness and resentment, sadness and depression. Those, ladies and gentlemen, are the wounded parts of you that are coming forward after decades and continuing to try to remind you that there is still healing to take place. Those aren't things we wisp away. Those aren't things that we ignore. Time doesn't heal wounds, ladies and gentlemen. That is a myth.
Right.
Commitment to your daily healing heals wounds. So those voices, those triggers, those hot flashes, that chronic pain, that's all related to your unresolved childhood trauma, believe it or not. When we simply validate and recognize when those triggers come forward, that's an initial step to healing, because those childlike parts of us that are coming forward in those seemingly nefarious voices telling you that you're not good enough, not pretty enough, not skinny enough, not sexy enough, not making enough money,
Mm.
those are all voices, believe it or not, that are there trying to get your attention to say, I need help. I'm still here at 7 years old, at 9 years old, at 12 years old. It's the wounded child within you trying to get your attention, and he or she has been ignored for decades. So the most important first step that we can take is simply acknowledge her or him. Acknowledge the voice, acknowledge the pain, because that's the inner child that's trying to get your attention to help you begin the healing process.
Awareness.
Awareness.
Yeah. Meditation, coaches,
Absolutely.
therapists, reading.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yep. Making
Healing
the
work is
commitment.
beautiful. Making the
Yes,
commitment.
exactly.
All right, folks, let's make that commitment
Hmm.
and get
I
these
hear that.
relationships sound and in loving energies because love is the highest form,
Hmm.
right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, it's been an honor.
Thank you, Dina. Been a
You're
pleasure.
welcome.
Great questions. Fantastic questions. I appreciate the
Yes,
dialogue. Yeah.
yes, you got it. So David Lee, folks, Daring Deeply, you could find him all over media, as
Hmm.
well as myself with Cashmere Hands and Dina Michelle. And we will revisit this segment sooner or later.
Hmm.
All my love, thank you for your time, and I will be in touch with you real soon. If anyone has any questions, you know how to reach us. Our contact information will be involved. We'll see you soon. Have a blessed day, everyone. Bye, David.
Bye-bye.